You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tehan. In addition to this show, I write for the PackersPost.com and Cheesehead TV. Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. And Sean, I hope you and your family had a very Merry Christmas. And we are now heading toward the last two games of the regular season. But before we talk about this weekend's big matchup against the Vikings, how about a word from our sponsor?
Yeah, and Gil, and a happy Hanukkah to you on the other side, by the way, to you and your family. TicketKing.com. It's a good site to go to, especially right now. The Green Bay Packers, they're playoff bound, so you get some pretty cheap tickets. They may not win the division. They're not going to win the division this year, but for over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packer fans. You can find them on the web at TheTicketKing.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. For direct links to specific Packers game tickets, go to PackersTalk.com/tickets or browse their website at TheTicketKing.com. And if you're watching with us on YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in. And you can see the links right there on your screen. Once again, they're at Minnesota this week. They're back home for the season finale against the hated but never feared Chicago Bears. And also, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell your family about it. And, TicketKing.com, Wisconsin's own Ticket King. And it's a good time to go to a Packers game, especially if you're a big Packer fan like Gil and I as well.
Yeah, I can't wait. And hey, there may even be a playoff game at a warm location.
Yeah, hey, that's a positive, as long as it's not Tampa, because they never seem to get anything right in Tampa. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is. But, Gil, that ponders the question, though, where the Packers, they clinch a playoff berth with the 34-0 shutout win against the New Orleans Saints, a really dominant performance against a Saints team that was clearly beat up, beleaguered. You know, they're not going to the playoffs, and for good reason. But the Packers can't win the division either. You'd think, 11-4, they're competing for the division, yet they're looking like they're going to finish in third place in the division at 11 wins or 12 wins or 13 wins, whatever it may be. So you got 2 more weeks until the playoffs. They're going to open on the road. And for Green Bay, what is the best approach for a team that's playoff bound like the Packers in these final 2 games? Do you play to win? Do you sit guys? What do you do?
In my mind, you got to play to win for at least this week. And I'll tell you why. And I said at least this week. You don't want to be the 7th seed. You want to avoid that. And if they lose both of their last 2 games, there is a chance that they could fall back to the 7th seed. If you can be the 5th seed, that would be the best possible scenario, because you're most likely going to be playing, well, the winner of the NFC South, which as of right now would be Atlanta, but still, as you said, could be Tampa Bay. And we all know how wonderful the memories are of trips down there. But I think out of all the division winners, the one team you would most likely want to play is the NFC South winner. And if you're the 5th seed, you do have a chance to host a playoff game if a few upsets happen. If you're the 6th or the 7th, the odds of that are significantly less. And if you can beat Minnesota and possibly pass them, that's just a little added bonus. And I think taking the playoffs out of the picture after losing to Philadelphia, losing to Detroit twice, and losing to Minnesota once, psychologically, beating the Vikings on the road would be a great thing for this young team, confidence-wise, heading into the playoffs.
See, and I do think you got to play to win, obviously, these last 2 games. You got to keep building and stacking success. And what Matt LaFleur has always done, his Packer teams have always been really good in the month of December. They always have. And you just got to keep building. But I would take the approach where, hey, you could improve your seeding, but you got to make sure that the guys who are questionable, we're going to get to the injuries in just a sec, don't play them. If they're 50%, don't play them. Maybe if they're 80%, then you run them out there. But we're going to talk about all the injuries that the Packers are dealing with right now. They got hit a little bit more by the injury bug in that Monday night win against the Saints. But if you have guys who are just at 50% and they're not in win or go home mode right now, but you do want to play to win. And the seeding doesn't really concern me, Gil, because they've played the Rams, who are probably going to win the NFC West. They've seen Philadelphia. They've seen the Vikings. They're going to see them again. They've seen Detroit. And I just feel like Green Bay can hang with anybody in the NFC. I really do. And they play a team like Philadelphia. Listen, this team went on the road to Dallas last year, who seemed like a really strong number 2 seed, looked like they were going to be probably the biggest competition for the eventual NFC champion, San Francisco 49ers. The Packers destroyed them in Jerry World. This Packers team's not afraid. And that was Jordan Love's first career playoff game. It was a lot of those guys' first career playoff game, and they were totally unfazed. I don't care about the seeding. I care about them taking the right approach, though, taking the right steps to keep building, show strides, show improvement, but make sure you're healthy going into the playoffs. The health is the biggest thing for me. I'm not saying, and I know Jordan Love, he missed a few games this year with the knee issue that he had in Brazil, and then the groin injury that he suffered later in the season as well. I'm not saying like, oh, you should rest Love until the playoffs. No, he's healthy. He's good to go. You play him. But these other guys were just make sure they can get up to speed, and then it's full go when it comes playoff time.
Does your approach change for week 18, depending on whether or not you win Sunday in Minnesota?
Not good. No, I think it's the same thing where it's a matter of if guys are healthy enough, if they're 80, 90%. Personally, I would love to see Jair Alexander get out there for just for special packages, small packages, shake some rust off, get out there. Maybe Evan Williams, the same case for him as well. Javon Bullard could fall in that category as well. But that's the way I would do it, where you got to make sure these guys are not in win or go home mode right now. But I would like to see them shake off the rust if possible, if they are healthy. But the health is the most important thing, because this team can win. They've been winning without Jair Alexander. They've been winning without Evan Williams. They've been winning without Javon Bullard. This team is so good. They're so deep. There's a lot of talent all up and down the 53-man roster. I feel like the Green Bay Packers are in a good spot, but there's obviously a few guys you absolutely cannot lose on this team. But that's the approach I would take. What about you, Gil?
You know, I might change my approach to the season finale against the Bears, depending on what happens, because I don't want to go into the playoffs after losing 2 straight games. I don't want that to be the intro to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So if we lose to Minnesota, I feel more obligated to beat and you never want to lose to the Bears anyway. I mean, that's not acceptable. But to me, you don't want to go into the playoffs with 2 straight losses. If you beat Minnesota, would I consider sitting Jordan Love for the second half of that Bears game? I might. Give Malik Willis a little work. Make sure that Jordan Love is still sharp, but not going to get injured. Give a lot more running attempts to Emmanuel Wilson and Chris Brooks. Bo Melton, Malik Heath, get them some reps.
Sprinkle those guys deep on the roster.
Those guys in a little bit more. But, if you beat Minnesota, the equation kind of changes.
It really does. And for Minnesota, too, it would seal their fate as well, because Detroit, if they were to win I believe even if Minnesota loses, I believe Detroit wins the division. Right. Or no, Detroit has to win. Minnesota has to lose for Detroit to win the division. So it kind of be set. And honestly, going into that final game, I guarantee you a lot of Bears fans, because their season's over, I guarantee you they just want to tank for draft position. So I think honestly the Bears fans are going to be rooting for the Packers just for the sake of their future.
I don't know how many Bear fans will accept that willingly a loss to the Packers, but okay, we'll see.
Yeah, that's a good point. But
it's not my problem either. But
the big thing going forward is don't get hopefully the Packers don't get decimated by significant injuries these last 2 weeks. Just be ready to go for the playoffs. Keep stacking, keep making strides, keep improving. Just keep building on what they've been doing so well. I mean, hey, this team is 9-2 since they opened the season 2-2. This is a damn good football team. Just
and
be healthy.
One other thing, it is a really good football team. But one other thing that I would definitely do, especially if you win against Minnesota, I would start sprinkling in some trick plays against the Bears, just so other teams have to scout it.
Yeah. And not a bad idea. Don't open the whole kitchen sink on the Bears or anything like that. But
show them something they haven't, 1 or 2 things they haven't seen, just to make them think about it.
Yeah, hey, that's kind of why the Lions faked a fumble before throwing a touchdown in that game against the Bears last Sunday. So things to consider for sure. But Speaking of those Packer injuries, those Packers dealing with injuries right now. This week in practice so far, linebacker Quay Walker, he missed the New Orleans game. He hasn't practiced this week. Evan Williams had a quad issue that flared up in practice on Saturday before the Saints game. He hasn't practiced this week. Christian Watson had a knee injury that he suffered during the Saints game. They got good news on that. Matt LaFleur said, fortunately, just a knee bruise. He hasn't practiced this week. Tyron Hopper, I believe, suffered an ankle injury on special teams. He hasn't practiced this week. Elton Jenkins, a knee issue flared up today. He practiced on Wednesday, didn't practice on Thursday. But some good news, though, for the Packers. Safety Javon Bullard, he returned to practice. He's been limited this week. Jair Alexander, he was a full participant quite a bit leading up to the Saints game and missed the Saints game. He's a full participant in practice on Wednesday, limited on Thursday. And I feel like, I don't know if he suffered a setback or anything like that. Matt LaFleur was asked about Jair Alexander and if he's going to play on Sunday, and he said probably not. Essentially, probably not. Or I wonder if they're just ramping him up and they're just being as careful with him as possible, because obviously he came back a little too soon for that Bears game right out of the bye. He only played 10 snaps, and then he sat the rest of that game. He hasn't been on the field since. And you wonder if they're just ramping him up as much as possible and then just being very careful with his status, because he's a game changer when he's healthy. And when he's locked in and healthy, that guy's a game changer in the Packers secondary. And I believe, I hope it's not a setback. And I just hope that they're being very careful with him right now.
Yeah, I think it's important to have him ready for the playoffs. And I think the fact that this Vikings game is on artificial turf may cause them to even hesitate a little bit more to bring him back for this game. Look, you have Justin Jefferson out there. We'll get into the matchups a little bit later. Obviously, having Jair helps you cover Justin Jefferson, but it is not worth the risk in this game to possibly have a setback during the game and then not have Jair for the playoffs when it is win or go home.
Yeah, this is going to be a good game coming up this week. Obviously, it's the Vikings, it's the Packers. Both teams are playoff bound. People are curious, why is this not the primetime game? Well, their playoff fates are set, essentially, where the Vikings, they're in the running for the division. The Packers, they're locked into a wild card spot. So I understand why it's a 325 game. And let's get into the matchups right away, Gil, like you said. The Green Bay offense and the Minnesota defense. Let's start on those sides of the ball right now. Green Bay offense, fourth total offense in the league this year. Minnesota's total defense, I was kind of surprised about this. They're only 14th in the league in total defense. I thought they'd be a little bit higher than this, but we really break down the numbers. You'll see why they're 14th and why I thought they should be a little higher. But Green Bay's offense this year averaging 27.5 points per game. That's 7th in the league. They're the 11th ranked passing attack and the 4th ranked rushing attack, averaging 147.3 rushing yards per game. Minnesota's defense, well, the passing defense is pretty low ranked, 248.7 passing yards per game allowed. It's 29th in the NFL, but a big thing for that is they're getting ahead of teams, and teams are forced to throw against them. That's why that number is a little bit inflated, because the rushing defense for Minnesota has been outstanding. They're allowing 87 rushing yards per game on defense. That's 2nd in the league, and they're not letting teams score. 18.4 points per game allowed this year in the NFL. That's 2nd in the league. This is a very aggressive unit. Brian Flores is a really, really good coach, a really good defense coordinator, a guy who should be in the running for a head coaching job. I hope he gets a head coaching job because I want him out of the NFC North. I want him to go get an AFC head coaching job, ideally. That's just my personal opinion. But this Green Bay offense is just getting better and better every week. They didn't allow a sack in the win against the Saints. They didn't turn the ball over. The running game was good. The passing game was good enough off of the run game. The balance was outstanding. But in that first game, it was a very unbalanced attack on offense because the Packers got buried early, and it forced Green Bay's offense to throw the ball quite a bit in that first meeting back in September at Lambeau. Gil, what's the matchup that we should be looking forward to between the Packers offense and the Vikings defense?
You know, the first matchup that I'm talking about is strength against strength, and that's the Packers running game against the Vikings run defense. Green Bay, their offense, you could talk all you want about Jordan Love. This offense runs through Josh Jacobs.
Yep.
And you don't have to run for 200 yards in this game, but you got to feed the beast. You got to run enough. And I really want to see the interior of the Green Bay offensive line against the middle of the Minnesota defense. And Josh Jacobs has got to set the tone early so that the Packers can have balance on offense.
Yeah, that first game against Minnesota at Lambeau was so disjointed right away, where the Vikings raced ahead to a 28-3 lead in the first half. And Josh Jacobs, who is the fourth leading rusher in the NFL right now, he wasn't really used. He couldn't be utilized because the Packers were forced to throw the ball. Also, Jordan Love was coming back from that knee injury. Clearly wasn't 100%, but he gave it his all in that game. He really played as hard as possible. The Packers, though, lost 31-29, but Jacobs had 9 carries for 51 yards and 4 catches for 27 yards. 13 touches only for Josh Jacobs in that first game. And boy, have the Packers learned from that, because he is the focal point, and he should be the focal point of this offense, because the Packers offense goes as Josh Jacobs goes. And the offense in general in that first game against Minnesota, they rushed for over 4.5 yards per carry, but they only ran the ball 19 times, 86 yards in that first game, because Minnesota's rushing defense was not tested at all. But I feel like the Packers are going to be a great test for that Vikings rushing defense, because the Packers, they're just like, hey, we don't care if it's coming. We're still going to bring it. And Josh Jacobs needs to be the big focal point right away. I'm with you, Gil.
It's strength against strength, and it's going to be an intriguing matchup to watch throughout this game. Again, you don't need to run wild. I don't need 150 yards from Josh Jacobs, but I do need 20-plus touches one way or the other.
And Green Bay's ball carriers this year averaging 4.7 yards per carry. That's tied for 6th in the NFL. What was it? 9 guys had rushing attempts in that win on Monday Night Football. I'm telling you, Matt LaFleur he's keeping defensive coordinators up at night, because he literally feels there are 9 guys who could possibly run the ball. That's outstanding. That's good luck. Good luck opposing defenses. Minnesota, though, that rushing defense has been so good. They're allowing opposing ball carriers to average 3.9 rush yards per carry. That's tied for 2nd best in the NFL. A big matchup, though, that I'm looking forward to watch, Gil, myself, between the Packers offense and the Vikings defense. It's the Packers pass protection against the Vikings pass rush. This Green Bay O-line has been really good. 16 sacks allowed this year. That's 2nd fewest to Buffalo in the NFL. Minnesota's defense, they're very aggressive. They like to bring a lot of blitz-heavy packages. 44 sacks this year. That's 5th in the league. They have a couple guys with double-digit sacks on the year, and Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Grenard, both first-year players with the Vikings. They each have 11 sacks this year. Both lead the team in tackles for loss with 17 and 16, respectively. And Van Ginkel also has 5 pass deflections and 2 pick sixes this year. That's pretty outstanding. You got to make sure you got an eye on that guy. And in that first meeting between the Packers and the Vikings, the Packers O-line only allowed 1 sack and 3 tackles for loss, but Minnesota registered 10 quarterback hits, and they were able to defend 12 passes against Love and the Packers offense. And the Vikings defense made life really, really difficult for Jordan Love. Even though Jordan Love threw 4 touchdown passes, he still threw 3 interceptions. And that Vikings pass rush is a big reason why.
Yeah, and, you got to love, as a football purist, not as a Packer fan, but as a football fan, Brian Flores and the way he runs that defense. And it's interesting because Jeff Hafley has sort of adapted some of the things that Brian Flores does as far as disguising the blitz package, having 8 or 9 guys at the line of scrimmage, but only rushing 4 or 5. But you've got to figure out which guys and which hole they're going to, which gap they're coming from. That deception is a big part of it, and the Vikings do it as well as anybody. This is a test both for Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love, and that offensive line, which, as you said, has really, really, in my opinion, been the unsung hero of the Packers offense this year.
Much like the Packers defense, the Vikings defense, their ability also to roll into different coverages in between during the plays is outstanding. It's really, and that's the mark of a well-coached defensive unit. That's the mark of a well-coached team in general. But so this is going to be an interesting matchup, because the Packers offense can keep doing what they're doing, and they keep the Vikings offense out the field. It could be a very good day for Green Bay, but you never know. You don't know how these things are going to pan out. Special teams issues were also a big reason why the Packers lost in that first game. Braden Narvison was kicking in that first game. Now, exactly. Now the kicking position's a little more shored up for the Packers, and that could be a big factor.
Yeah, it could be. It really could be. And just to sort of take it full circle, though, if Jordan Love has time to throw, we saw what he could do against the Minnesota secondary in the second half of the first meeting between these two teams. Minnesota's pass defense is toward the bottom of the league. What are they, 27th in the league in pass
29th,
defense?
29th.
If Love has time to throw, I am confident the Packers receivers can take advantage of the Minnesota secondary. So those two things that we're highlighting, I think, are going to be huge keys to the success of Green Bay in this game.
Minnesota's pass defense, it's very much feast or famine. They get to the quarterback, they intercept a lot of passes. 22 interceptions by the Minnesota defense this year. That's most in the NFL. That's number one. And it's very much feast or famine. Dontavian Wicks, if he can catch the ball, he's been playing a lot better lately. You get that guy going. They tried to get him going against the Vikings that first game. He still had some good numbers, but he had a lot of key drops. Clean that up, and Green Bay could have a pretty good day throwing the football on Sunday at US Bank Stadium. Now, let's get to the Minnesota offense and the Green Bay defense. Minnesota's total offense, the 12th ranked unit in the league. Green Bay, well, they've had two back-to-back really good defensive performances against the Seahawks and the Saints. They've risen all the way to 8th overall in the NFL. Minnesota's offense averaging 26.4 points per game, 9th in the league, 235.3 passing yards per game, that's 8th in the league, and 111.1 rush yards per game, that's 17th in the NFL. That's led by former Packer. We love him. We don't like him, though, on Sunday because he plays for the purple and gold. That's Aaron Jones. He's leading that rushing attack. Green Bay's defense allowing 19.1 points per game. That's 6th in the NFL. 209.7 pass yards per game. That's 8th in the league. And 102.5 rushing yards per game. That's 7th in the NFL. Gil, this defense is trending up. They're a little bit beat up. Possibly no Jair again. No Evan Williams. No Quay Walker. Maybe no Javon Bullard. It's a lot of second teamers who are going to be playing for the Packers defense potentially on Sunday against a Vikings offense that's humming and playing really good football. What's a matchup that we should be looking forward to watching now?
How do you contain Justin Jefferson? And especially how do you contain Justin Jefferson if there's no Jair Alexander? And to me, the model that they have to use is to go back to the Miami game and the way they were able to contain Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
You've got to be – he's going to get his catches. It would not bother me if Justin Jefferson finishes this game with 7 catches for 45 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, I can live with that. You let him catch the ball in front of you and you rally to the ball and you keep that average yards per catch low. Make them work for it because Justin Jefferson is the kind of receiver who can change the game in a single play. You can't let him have those kind of impact plays in this game. And to the Packers' credit, even though they're not making headlines right now, Eric Stokes and Carrington Valentine, you know, they're not making splash plays except for the interception Valentine made a couple of weeks ago. But if you look at their numbers as to how many passes have been thrown to them when they've been on the field and what the completion percentage is and the quarterback rating is, over the last 2 or 3 games especially, they have really done much better. And we're not seeing as many missed tackles. We're not seeing I think the Packers have only allowed 1 pass of 40 yards or more all season. Yeah. They have done a much better job of keeping the play in front of them and rallying to the football. And that's what they're going to have to do to not stop Justin Jefferson, but contain him.
Not one guy's going to stop Justin Jefferson. And even if Jair was out there, he's not going to just stop Justin Jefferson on his own. He has the best chance of stopping Justin Jefferson on his own if he's healthy. But it takes a whole team. You got to have your whole focus on that guy. But Jordan Addison's good. TJ Hawkinson's good. We know what Aaron Jones can do. But like this Packers defense, though, like you were saying, Gil, though, they're really trending in the right direction where the pass rush has been really good lately for Green Bay, where you get to Sam Darnold. And I know Sam Darnold has been really good. He's probably going to make some great money in the offseason, and he deserves it because he's really had an outstanding season for Minnesota. But Sam Darnold's prone to throwing some interceptions, fumbling the ball a little bit. And that's kind of the matchup I'm looking forward to is Sam Darnold and Xavier McKinney, where in the last meeting, remember, Darnold, he was 20-28, 275 yards. He did throw 3 touchdowns, but he had a pass interception by McKinney, which probably shouldn't have counted as an interception. If you looked at the replay, it was juggled a little bit, but it didn't matter. It didn't hurt the Vikings in the end. They still won the game. That's all that matters. And Darnold also was strip sacked. He also lost a fumble too. And this Packers pass rush has been so much better lately, where they're up to 43 sacks on the year. That's sixth most in the NFL ever since the Preston Smith trade. Brenton Cox Jr. is getting on the field more. He's already tied for second, I believe, on the team in sacks this year by Packer pass rushers. And this Packers pass rush has been kind of rejuvenated after making that move earlier this season before the trade deadline. And then Minnesota's O-line has allowed 46 sacks this year. That's ninth most in the NFL. They did lose their left tackle, Christian Darrisaw, a very good left tackle, to a season-ending knee injury against the LA Rams in Game 7 this year. And since that game, they've allowed 24 sacks in 8 games. That's 3 sacks allowed per game. And if you can get pressure in Sam Darnold's face, maybe he lobs one up. Maybe Xavier McKinney is in the right place at the right time. You got to key on this guy. Every quarterback has got to key on Xavier McKinney because he leads the NFL in interceptions with 7 interceptions for a reason. He's always in the play, and teams are clearly making a point to get away from him. But if Sam Darnold makes a mistake, Xavier McKinney's got something to do with that.
Yeah, and I got to give a shout out. You mentioned Brenton Cox. Rashawn Gary has played better since the Preston Smith trade, but you know who else has quietly been better? Kingsley Enagbare.
Yes,
he has been getting more pressure on the quarterback. Not always sacks, but pressure. He's always kind of there. Mm-hmm. And I think you can, if you get pressure on Sam Darnold, he will throw 2 or 3 interceptable balls per game. Then it's up to you, the Packers defense, to catch them, which is why I'd rather see him throw near Xavier McKinney than some of the other guys they've got out there. Yeah. But you gotta make Darnold feel the pressure and make mistakes.
And obviously you got to stop their run game too, where Aaron Jones has been solid, but this is kind of shocking. Minnesota's offense is only averaging 4.0 yards per carry this season. That's tied for 26th in the NFL. And Green Bay's rushing defense has been so much better. And Rashawn Gary, like you said, he's been a big part of that. And just the whole front seven has just been better against the run than they ever were under Joe Barry, where opposing ball carriers are only averaging 4.1 yards per carry this year. That's tied for fifth best in the NFL. Green Bay's rushing defense has been really good. So you slow down the run, you make Sam Darnold pass, and he may give you a couple, and you got to take advantage for sure.
You do. And one guy who has really helped them stop the run, you got Devontae Wyatt. You've got, who I should have mentioned in the pass rush as well, but Edgerrin Cooper makes a big difference for this defense.
Yes, he does.
He really gives them an element that they did not have when he was out of the lineup. So having a healthy Edgerrin Cooper, he is a catalyst, both against the run and at rushing the passer for this defense.
Yeah, it's kind of nice having him out there because I know, like I was just saying, where quarterbacks kind of know where Xavier McKinney is. Edgerrin Cooper's kind of getting in that territory where it's like you got to know where 56 is at all times because that guy can wreck a game in a heartbeat. He should be playing every snap. He should be on the field every damn play, every play. I'm not even kidding. And because he makes that much of an impact where he's around the ball and good things happen. And if he's in the middle of the play, good things happen for the Packer defense. So a lot there. This is going to be quite the matchup coming up, though, between that Vikings offense and the Packers defense. And let's go over some key stats and figures real quick before we get to some trivia, some predictions. And those watching with us on YouTube, Facebook, thank you so much. Chime in with a prediction, what you think is going to happen on Sunday. Packers a little beat up, locked into a wild card spot. What do you think is going to happen? We'd love to hear it. Read them on air as we're live here on YouTube. But turnover ratio this year, the Packers plus 12. That's third best in the NFL. The Vikings, well, they're right behind. They're plus 10, tied for fifth best. They do a very good job taking away the football. Giveaways, a little bit high for Minnesota, but they do a terrific job taking the football away. Penalties this year. Green Bay, 100 penalties on offense, ninth most in the league. 100 penalties on defense, that's tied for 18th. Minnesota's offense and defense, well, they're a little bit heavily penalized too. The offense, 97 penalties this year. That's tied for 15th most. The defense, 126 penalties this year. By far the most in the league. Again, it's an aggressive unit, feast or famine. There's a lot of stuff that happens on that defensive side of the ball against for Minnesota. You get them in penalty trouble. That could be good things for Green Bay. Third downs, Green Bay's offense, 38.6%. That's 14th in the league. They were really good on Monday night against the Saints on third down. 35.7% on defense, tied for seventh best. Minnesota's offense, 40.6% on offense. That's 11th in the league. Their defense, 33.7%. They have been so good on third down on defense. That's second in the NFL. And then red zone touchdown percentage. Green Bay's offense, 59.7%. That number keeps climbing up. They're 11th right now in the league, 60% on defense, tied for 20th. The Saints didn't even sniff the red zone once in that Monday night.
Once.
Which is just ridiculous. I know the Saints are beat up, but still, that's shocking. And then Minnesota's offense, 60.4%. In the red zone on offense, that's 9th in the league. The defense, 54.8%. That's 14th best in the league. So, Gil, all those numbers and everything like that, it seems like these teams are pretty similar for the most part. They take the ball away. They give it away a little bit too much, a little more than you'd like, but they win the turnover battle. They commit a lot of penalties, and third downs overall pretty solid. Both these teams are.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really close game. Look, the first game was 2 points? So
yep.
I think we're going down to the wire again. I just think Minnesota needs it a little bit more. They are at home. I have to give them a very slight edge in this game.
Hold on to the prediction. Hold on to that prediction. Okay. Hold on, Gil.
Okay.
Vikings injury news real quick. Just going to brush over this. Harrison Smith, the veteran safety, stud safety of the Vikings, didn't practice on Wednesday with a foot issue, but he did return as a full participant on Thursday. Corner Fabian Moreau dealing with a hip. He hasn't practiced this week. We mentioned left tackle Christian Darrisaw. He is on the IR. His season is over for the Vikings. And then on the IR, designated to return for Minnesota, is linebacker Ivan Pace Jr. He's dealing with a hamstring issue. Brian Flores loves to use him in blitz packages quite a bit. Guy to keep an eye on if he's ready to go. Gil, before we get to predictions, because I'm ready too. Why does Green Bay win on Sunday?
Green Bay wins if they contain Justin Jefferson and win the turnover battle.
I'm with you. Yeah, play disciplined football. Don't turn the ball over too. If you take care of the football against Minnesota, I feel very good about Green Bay's chances. Why do the Packers lose?
The Packers lose if they beat themselves with either turnovers and or penalties, and if they can't stop Justin Jefferson.
For me, if the players who may be missing, who are trending towards missing this game, if the guys who are filling in for them, if they don't play well, it could be a rough day, especially on the defense. And the offense, if they get turnover heavy. It's been pretty good since the bye week. Only one interception and a fumble lost since the bye week. But if they turn the ball over against a Minnesota team that feasts on takeaways, could be a rough day for Green Bay as well. All right, Gil. Now it's time for your prediction. What's your prediction?
Now it's time for the prediction. I just think Minnesota needs this game more. They want to set up that season finale against a beat-up Lions team who they want to pass and get that bye in the NFC playoffs. The Packers are going to go toe-to-toe with them, but I think the Vikings find a way to get it done. I'm saying it's going to be Minnesota 38, Green Bay 35. And
for me, I think it's going to be a close game as well. The big thing with this is I always want to beat the Vikings. I'd love to beat the Vikings. It's always great. But if they lose this game, as long as the Packers get out unscathed with significant injuries, and if they show progress, signs of progress, where the Lions lost at Ford Field, especially, they showed progress, in my opinion. And I know they lost that game, and they can't win the division because they got swept by the Lions this year, and the loss at Ford Field clinched that. But they showed strides. If they can show strides and get out of there without any significant injuries, I like it. But I do think there's a lot more on the line for Minnesota. They're playing at US Bank. I think that's going to be a factor. I think they win 31-30. I think it's going to be a really close game. But I think Minnesota, the home field advantage and that stupid Galler horn up there, I think that's gonna play an impact on Sunday. Gil, what articles do you have coming up, though, on the Packers Post and Cheesehead TV leading up to Vikings week?
Well, looked at a bunch of things. I looked at 5 sort of unsung Packers on Packers Post who are not making headlines, but are helping the team win on a consistent basis. Also took a look at who the Packers might want to play in the playoffs because, let's face it, you got 5 or 6 different choices, and who they play is going to matter. And, then on Cheesehead TV, had to take a look at the pass rush and how it's improved since the Preston Smith deal. And, again, not making headlines with that, but I think the pass rush's improvement has been a big reason that the defense is playing so well.
Speaking of your unsung heroes article, I hope Carl Brooks and Sean Ryan are two of those guys on that list, because I think those guys are big factors in the Packers' improvement on the offensive line and the defensive line and the growth throughout the year, because those guys have gotten so much better throughout the season, especially Carl Brooks, man. You know, I'm a big Carl Brooks guy, where that dude sacrifices so much and he just does his job and it makes everybody better. And I love that. So tune into Gil's stuff, Packers Post and cheeseheadtv.com. Gil, you ready for some trivia?
Ready for some trivia.
All right, sounds good. Well, this past Monday night, you may have heard the Green Bay Packers pitched a 34-0 shutout against the New Orleans Saints at Lambeau Field. It was the first shutout of the 2024 NFL season, the first one, and the first shutout by the Packers since the 2021 season, when they blanked the Seattle Seahawks on November 14th of 21 at Lambeau Field, 17-0. Now, Gil, a lot has changed on the roster since that game on the frozen tundra. Gil, can you guess within 3 players how many current Packers registered at least one snap in the 2021 game against the Seahawks, the last time the Packers registered a shutout?
3 years ago.
3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Not that long ago.
No, not that long ago. And yet
registered at least a snap.
Wow. Wow, because there is really a lot of change. Boy, I'm almost trying to name players in my mind here. I'm going to say an even dozen.
You're just off it's a little high, and this number shocked me. 7 Packers.
Wow.
7, and this is registered a snap. So the 7 guys who did register a snap in that game were Elton Jenkins, A.J. Dillon, who's technically still part of the Packers, Eric Stokes, Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, T.J. Slayton, even though it was only on special teams. I don't think he played that much defense that game, and Isaiah McDuffie. Those players were the only ones who played at least one snap in the 2021 game against Seattle, were those 7 players. Now, Jair Alexander and Josh Myers, who are both currently with the Packers, they were on the roster in 2021, but Jair was healing from a shoulder issue and missed that Seattle game, and he also missed the Saints game on Monday night as well, ironically. But Myers was dealing with a knee issue at that time and missed that Seattle game back in 2021. And Jordan Love, he was on the roster as well, but he didn't register a snap in that game. None of the Packers' current receivers and tight ends were even on the team in 2021, Gil. It just goes to show that things change quickly in the NFL. That's why the NFL is not for long, man. Isn't that a shocking number? Only 3 years ago, and only 7 guys currently on the team registered at least one snap in that game.
I guess when you have the youngest roster in the league in back-to-back years, that is bound to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And, hey, Green Bay, we got a big one coming up. Hey, Monday was fun, but big game coming up on Sunday. Let's just hope they show some improvement, get out of there scot-free. 11-4 Packers against the Vikings, who I have on the graphic 13-20. They're not 13-20. They're 13-2. My apologies on the typo. That's on me. Gil had nothing to do with that. Gil's perfect the way he is. Kickoff at 3:25 p.m. Central Time. Packers, it'd be nice to get a great win in a key division matchup, but I want to see improvement for the Packers. I want to get out without any major injuries in this one. And, hey, the Vikings, they've won 8 straight. I'd like to see that win streak come to a halt, but hopefully not without too much – hopefully not a lot of sacrifice on the Packers' end.
More importantly, if we see the Vikings again in the playoffs, I want to win that game.
Heck yeah.
I'll give them this one if I can take that one.
Heck yeah. Me too. Times a million.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us today. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter at Packers. Update on all things Packers or to ask us questions. Or you can email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you're subscribed to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show. Thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.